Americans, USA. What is a good thing about your country? US has 63 national parks and thousands of state parks. They preserve some of America's most beautiful places. Thank you, Teddy Roosevelt. I am a naturalized US citizen, have been living here for 12 years now, and I am still in awe and disbelief on how amazing public libraries are here. I got teary. Thank you from a librarian. We are huge. You can go on pretty much any kind of a vacation you want without leaving the country. Beach, mountains, desert, snow, high culture, big city, small rural town, sports, music. The only limit is your time and your budget. A lot of Europeans rag on Americans for not traveling. That's easy to say when your country is the size of one of our states and has 1 or 2 different biomes. Americans don't need to travel as much because there's more to see inside America. It's also way cheaper and less time-consuming for Europeans to leave their country. The natural aspects of it are quite beautiful, and there are very diverse natural aspects. The endless diversity of delicious food brought by immigrants from around the world. You go to a restaurant, and they just give you a gigantic glass of ice water for free. The national park system. 30-year fixed-rate mortgages. As an immigrant, I've always felt at home. You are home. You can go to Japan to live, but you cannot become Japanese. You can go to France to live and not become a Frenchman. You can go to live in Germany or Turkey, and you won't become a German or a Turk. But then he added, anybody from any corner of the world can come to America to live and become an American. Ronald Reagan. The Americans with Disabilities Act. I didn't realize how much reserved parking spots by the door, wide sidewalks that must be clean, handicapped bathrooms, and having ramps at the entrance were important until my brother became wheelchair-bound. Been living in US for a decade now. There are many positives about this great nation. National and state parks. It's not a stretch to say that they're one of the most well-preserved places. No one does this better than US. Thousands of places to hike, swim, kayak, canoe, camp. It's a diverse country. I can bet not all of you have seen lakes like the Great Lakes. It's altogether a unique and unreal experience to see a lake, just in name, but behave like a FKN ocean, but it's fresh water. There are many things in US that are refreshingly simple, from a red tape, bureaucratic perspective. Easy to start a company, rent a car, get a state ID, driver's license. One of those nations which still offers you a chance of upward mobility by hard work. I know it can be contentious, but compared to many nations on Earth, it's better. Road trips. No one does road trips better than US. It's one of most fun things that you can do if you're here. The freeway system is superb and well connected. You can pretty drive from Maine to California, or Barrow, AK to Key West, Florida. It's one of the greatest experiences of living in US. Beer and food. USA is a diverse nation, and it allows a person enjoy food from multiple ethnicities, areas. I never thought I'd be able to eat Ethiopian food in my life or Mongolian, but being in US made it possible. Also, it has a rich beer culture. People. Last but not the least. I know on media, and social media we get to see the worst of the people in US, and there are people who are bad, but there are good people as well, and they don't mind helping. Good kind-hearted folks, quirky in their own way of course. I have had the pleasure to know some fine people who welcomed me with open arms, and now have become a part of my family. I live in Seattle, and I love that you can find any kind of food from anywhere in the world if you look hard enough. I've traveled all over the US, and each city has its own food history since everyone's families originally, 99%, came from somewhere else. And like everyone says, our federal park system is huge. Space program. Did any other Americans come here just to be reminded why it's not the hopeless hellscape the news tells us it is? Yeah, it's refreshing to remember all the positive aspects of this country. Sure, the US isn't perfect. No country is. It has many issues, but it also has many blessings. But I'm not here to turn my reply into a political post. Just a reminder to my fellow Americans, it's possible to love your country while also being critical of certain aspects. Limit your news time and go out. Live your life outside of the political sphere. Dolly Parton, obviously. In general, despite how the media might portray it or how much the US is criticized for racism, the US is by far the most culturally diverse country. Most other countries don't have as big of an issue with racism because they are mostly homogeneous and the outliers are typically well integrated. If you see a black man, an Asian, a Caucasian and an Indian all hanging out in America, nobody will bat an eye. But if you have that same group in France or Germany, In France, everyone there was staring at us like we were little green aliens having a picnic. It might not show on the news or even on social media, but the diversity is truly amazing. You can have a group full of different types of people and it's always a good time. I've never been out of the country, but I find it neat that we can get a taste of almost everything here. It might not be perfect or authentic, but at least we have an idea. I think about this often. I'm a Texan, and just today there was a man and his wife set up outside the grocery store selling barbecue. Men, women, white, black, Asian, Middle Eastern, all standing in line, laughing, talking, kids running around. Just picking up some slow smoked brisket, ribs, and links to take home. Free public restrooms. And water. While this may not apply to any given American person or town, our culture is not rigid or uptight at all. There's very little consequence in doing things drastically different from your neighbors, and there's not much broad expectation to conform to how things are done. Someone might judge you, but that's just, like, their opinion, man. While I don't think this is necessarily uniquely American, it's definitely not universal. America does support individualism over conformity. Incredible natural beauty and diversity of ecosystems. Yellowstone. Yellowstone is like being on an entirely different planet at times, with a ridiculous amount of flora and fauna that either want to eat you or build a nest in your car, not to mention the eldritch geysers and springs. It's absolutely essential viewing, and God bless Teddy Roosevelt. For the most part, we are very friendly. You can have a friendly little chat or interaction with a stranger anywhere like you're good friends. I just got back from a 2-week backpacking trip through the Nordics and, no offense because I love and respect their culture, I felt completely invisible the entire time. No one is friendly there, partially because it's considered weird to talk to strangers. But the coldness is palpable. Made me a little relieved to get back to the US, where people actually smile or chat with you instead of just being as cold as possible. Also, we tend not to hate tourists because of where they're from, the way that some, definitely not most, but some people immediately made assumptions about Americans and were actively mean because of it. Like, yes, there are some dirtbag American tourists. Unfortunately, I've met them. But the vast majority of us are not like that and shouldn't be treated like that immediately. Americans don't really see tourists when they come here and actively try to be mean because of what country the tourist is visiting from, the way some, but not all, Europeans do when they see Americans. Yeah, that's something I'm starting to realize. As an European, we can be cold AF for no reason. I once met an American Asian guy in a plane. We talked almost during the entire trip. When we landed, we got something to drink and he even paid for me. Friendliest guy ever. The country is huge. It takes about 42 hours of non-stop driving to go from New York City to Los Angeles. That's probably 4 days of solid driving, with at least 10 hours a day or driving. What you see on the news about us is not representative of the common person. Each state is almost like an individual country in itself. The nation is absolutely gorgeous, from red rock deserts, to pine forests, to barren prairies, to stunning mountain ranges, to beautiful tropical beaches, and more. The people are almost universally friendly. It's our culture. You say hi to strangers and ask how they're doing even if you've never met them. It's our small talk to start a conversation, whether it's at a store, restaurant, or random person on the street. Ever heard of the Cannonball Run? It's an unofficial race across the nation from some garage in NYC to a hotel in California. The current record, set during the pandemic due to reduced traffic, still took over 24 hours. The fact that I can piss and moan about and criticize the government and or president and not fear official retribution. An American soldier and a Soviet soldier find themselves discussing their respective countries. The American soldier tells the Soviet soldier, for instance, I could go to Washington, D.C., go to the White House, into the Oval Office and tell John F. Kennedy to his face, Mr. President, I do not like the way you're running this country. The Soviet laughs and says, you think that is unique? I can go to Moscow, go to the Kremlin, into the office of Nikita Khrushchev and tell him to his face, Mr. Chairman, I do not like the way Kennedy runs his country. You can drive a coupe of states over and everything is different. Guess it depends on your state. In California, just gotta drive a few hours and everything is different. Diversity. Sometimes it blows my mind that a place like Florida could be in the same country as a place like Alaska. I'm from Florida. It blows my mind we exist. According to my mom, who grew up in China as the communist regime fell, she thinks the freedom in America is pretty great, like you can pick your own job and the government doesn't pick it for you, and she kept reminding me of this growing up in America. My parents are from Colombia, which isn't a communist country, but they always reminded me that in America, if you work hard and make good choices, you can work your way up in the world. You can't say that about many other countries. There's red tape and BS, but you still can work in any industry you want in the US. You can also switch career paths and start over at any time. Our community college system rocks. We make some of the world's best hot smoked meats, namely Central Texas brisket, Carolina's smoked pork, and everything in between. I've traveled around much of the world and eaten everywhere. Our smoked brisket is in a league of its own. A lot of people say there is no American culture, but there is. It's just so spread and diverse that you don't notice it. You can get culture shock from going a state or two over. Culture is our biggest export. Music, entertainment, and other forms of American art are the most popular in the entire world. Access to public education for children with special needs is a right guaranteed by law, and those protections are stronger in the educational service for special needs children are better than in most of the rest of the world. The ADA is also pretty amazing, and the United States is a lot more accessible than most other countries. Some of that's because the buildings are newer, yes. But it's really nice to go on vacation and know that your hotel will be able to accommodate you. Tour buses will be able to accommodate you. Most tourist attractions will be able to accommodate you, etc. Diverse geography, tropics, mountains, plains, deserts, seashore. From a European who has lived in America for 5 years, the people are in general a lot friendly than us in Europe. Also, it must be respected that America, factually, is the largest free country on earth. Most European countries may it better, but for a single country of 330 million, it is unprecedented. Peanut butter. We are very good at inviting criticism. The United States is the only country I know that hires people from other countries, Trevor Noah, Stuart Varney, John Oliver, Piers Morgan, and pays them very good money to publicly critique our way of life. In China, they love to pay Western people to come and talk about how great everything is. It's cringeworthy. Most of the country is very beautiful. We have basically every kind of ecology here. About 70% of Americans are really super awesome, kind, generous people. I'd say closer to 90, it's just that 10% is more than the population of Canada. Our bureaucracies. I know most people like to bitch about things like the DMV and the IRS. But the system of American bureaucracies are doing more to make the world a better place than they get credit for. The amount of money and manpower dedicated to data collection and deciphering is hard to fathom, and we're the only ones doing it for the entire world. Agencies like the DOT do massive amounts of testing on everything from train tracks to seat belts. Testing that goes far above and beyond what nearly any manufacturers do. The increase in road and travel safety in the past 100 years is unbelievable. And we share all of our data with every nation. The NOAA collects weather data used by every news channel, every weather agency, every government and military force, etc. The data we collect, and the research we've done on meteorology have taken weather prediction times from 1 day to about 10 days in the past century. The impact on life-saving, and crop-saving, this has impacted billions of lives. The DOE studies and regulates every nuclear facility on the planet. Our inspectors monitor every plant, every weapons cache, every warship worldwide. Either directly, or through NATO. Military initiatives like DARPA have created things like GPS satellites. We made them. All of them. We maintain them. Everyone else just gets to use them. And everyone does. We aren't perfect. Far from it. But our intense efforts to collect and interpret data in every field, from food and drugs, to technology, to medicine and hospitals, building codes, chemical classification, the list goes on and on and on, have been an unparalleled contribution to our species. GPS does not get enough credit. I get it that it should be available, but at the time that decision is huge. Absolutely revolutionary tech, and they just make it public. Come and actually meet us. I hear the same shit time and again from people, mostly Germans, you are not what I expected. And we're not. We inundate the world with so much of our pop culture, that you might be forgiven for thinking that's what Americans are like. We're actually very baffling and weird. You have to come here to get us. Or just keep watching YouTube videos with cherry-picked interviews of below-average Americans off the street not knowing some geography or basic facts, while the interviewer ignores anyone who might look credentialed so that he can create a skewed perception. National parks are pretty fucking fantastic. State parks are pretty fantastic too. Most Americans are genuinely nice people. TV typically only shows the disasters.